Hi guys, this is Pam Araya, and this is my presentation of my 2021 Capstone project. My Capstone project is really two really big projects wrapped combined into one. The case study one is early childhood speech lessons. So this was really inspired by my son's speech therapy and occupational therapy that was given to him when the pandemic really hit and he was stuck at home. He has learning disabilities and he really struggled at first. There was really hardly any way that the teachers could really engage him in his Zoom learning, and he really regressed. So I set out to develop some activities that the teachers could incorporate to their curriculum so that they could engage students by using this digital media. And I think it's important because especially these younger children, they're digital natives and they're really used to this technology. And as educators, we really have to incorporate this technology to really compete with everything else that's so engaging for them, like games or YouTube videos and all of that. And I think if we can incorporate those same things and use it for education, we can have a more successful lesson. The second part is really the main reason why I started this program. I am a graphic designer and an illustrator, and originally I wanted to get my master's in graphic design. I have illustrated an awards-winning children's book, and I have done educational workbooks for an educational company. And I just thought that it'd be a good idea to become more of an expert. But then when I realized that I really wanted to teach at a state college or a community college level, I knew that I really needed to make a difference in my online learning because I wanted to teach online as well. And I took half of my bachelor's in an in-person private art school, and then I took the rest in a state college online learning. And I felt that in comparison, the state college online learning really lacked in the terms of really critiquing work and having in-person discussions. There was a lot of writing and a lot of responding to other people's work via typing and text and all of that. But in the real world, when you have a final project, you all get together as a group, you all hang your artwork up, and you really talk about it, and that's where you really get to develop your vocabulary. And it's really important because that can be applied for any other job that students may have, where you have a staff meeting and you have to throw ideas around. You don't really have a week to come up with a paragraph or two and then send it to someone. You really have to be able to think on your feet and kind of develop that vocabulary, whether it's art related or not. So I think that's a very important part of just a degree. So I have been able to make a connection between these two where the main idea is to improve communication. So I have made a span of improving communication from kids' early childhood to adults. And let's see, let's start with my. Okay, so the first activity that I developed for the younger classes is a creative story. It's an interactive Google Slides and it facilitates expressive language, gives students a choice between images to build their own story, gives students prompts and choices to pull information together. So this is really for those kids who are struggling with speech therapy or speech delay and are having a hard time engaging in story time where the teacher holds a book and it looks maybe kind of blurry through the Zoom meeting and all of that. So they can really present this Google Slides. And let me show you how it works real quick here. So this is how they would have it. And it's kind of a lot of work, but I think it's worth the time because once you have this set up, you can copy it and then change the imagery to another theme that you have for your class. And so then when you go ahead and present, you can include um, sound effects, which, it really even becomes more engaging. So the one I developed for children is all based on underwater and sea animal lessons. So, the child can have a choice. They can read with the teacher and say, once upon a time there lived they can choose whatever animal they want and they click, there's a little sound, or there should be a sound. sometimes it has a little bit of a delay. And he was traveling to that, and then they can choose, whatever destination they want. And when he got there, he found his friend Da, and then they can choose again between these two. And then they decided to eat some lunch, and they had some veggies. And yeah, so then there's also a home button where if they are done with the story and they want to start over, and then maybe they want to make different choices, the teacher can just simply hit the home button up here, and it takes them back to the beginning of the page. And I think that is just a little bit more engaging, especially through a Zoom meeting, to engage the little ones. And it's creative, and at the end they can have a little story that's like a summary of all the choices they made, and they can you can see that here. Exit out of here. In this one slide here, you can see it. You have the children's name, and that's their own underwater story. The nice thing about this digital media is that in terms of assessment, you can record the session, and then you can get it on tape, and you can see, and review and analyze the quality of the book reading and the child's engagement. So I've also included a sample video of how it works here. Part 2 is an interactive Hyperdoc, and it could also be done with Google Slides, but I've done mine in a PDF. And this is really exclusively for speech therapy. And I have them right here. So this imagery, the hand and the eyes, are really very popular for speech therapists to use, because it gives the child the image of what they're trying to say. And so the child will say, "I want to see," and then these are all hyperlinked to live cams. So the child can choose which one of the sea animals they want to see. So once the teacher hears a choice from the student, they can click on it, and it should take them to the live cam. And I think, kids are really intrigued, and they just love watching live animals. And there's live cams of every animal you can ever think of. So you can imagine the possibilities with that. Okay, well, there's that one. And then my other one that I've created is so this one says, "I want to sing." So it's got the visual aids here for the speech therapy. And they get to choose, and it's the same idea. They get to choose a song they want to sing. And I think this is even more engaging, because maybe they want to come back and make another choice, as opposed to just giving them or telling them what they're supposed to do. It just becomes a little more engaging. And it has that digital media that they're, so familiar with. Okay, and in terms of assessment for this one, again, they can get it on tape. You can record the session. You can analyze the quality of engagement and mouth placement and articulation for this one. And I've also had a sample video in my Google Slides. And then for this one, part 3, is I have been developing a virtual environment in Mozilla Hubs, where I can put in my PDFs in there, and the teachers can actually sign on to Hubs and present it the way you would a slide or whatever else through your Zoom meeting, or in class with an iPad or a laptop. And they can have the student travel inside of this Hubs, which is like a virtual environment. There's a very little learning curve with Mozilla Hubs. It's very easy to access. You can access it from a phone, from a computer, from a tablet, from anywhere. It's very easy to come in. It's not as easy to build in there, but with a few tutorials, you can go ahead and place your items in there. And the idea for this is that I have been putting animals in there, and the idea would be to have a scavenger hunt. So to go in there and take part in these activities, and then look for the animals, and they can also watch videos. And I think I have, so I have placed animals, and I've watched it up. You can place videos in there, and they can watch the educational video, and then you can talk about the video and what they learned and all that. And again, they can get it on tape, and they can use it to review and gather important data, to guide future instruction and personalize instruction more specifically for students. Some of the challenges for this digital part of this the pre-K is that there's a lot of technology involved, so you'd have to probably have tutorial videos for parents and make sure that they have a device that is able to run these, or the Google Slides and Mozilla Hubs are so friendly that they can be played on any kind of device. So, but there are still some challenges with that. Okay, now to part 2 of my project is distance learning art education. And all the images here are from my virtual environment in the Finger Lakes. And I just have some background. Art education is always or constantly under stress. However, in order to succeed in math, science, and engineering, for example, it's important to be able to think outside the box and be creative problem solvers. And I think arts education really gives that to students. So I think it's really important. And especially when you go to college and you're getting out there and you're getting into the work environment and all that, you really need to practice that conversation. So I have some information of how my courses will be set up in an LMS and how I would do some assessing. I would probably do ed puzzles. I would have the students hand in works either through Moodle, and they would hand in regular assignments like formative assessments. And let's see, at the end of each lesson, we would meet in my virtual environment. I'm going to take you right now. So when you first land on my virtual environment, you're going to fall directly in front of the gallery. So I've set it up that way so that most of the time we're going to meet here just for that final assessment, and we're going to be right here in front of the gallery. So all right, so you just come up here, and just to give you a good idea of how this works, I have set up some fake students, which are just little frozen avatars here. But you get the idea that we can all meet here, and I think it's a maximum of 40 people, so you can have 40 students in your class, and we can actually come in and look at each other's work and really view it the way you would in a gallery, and you can get really nice and close, and the picture is pretty good. There's a lot of details that you can see in this image, and even the one over here that it's got some graphic design work. You can get pretty close in there and see the composition and lots of detail. And I think there's some up here, and you get the idea. You can have space for all of your students' work, and you can go one by one like you would in a real in-person class. Okay, so I hope that gives you a pretty good idea of how I think this could improve online art education, where we can have that in-person discussion and that true development of art vocabulary, which I think is so important. And let's go back to my presentation here. And here I just talk more about other ways that we can assess in VR. My most favorite idea is to have a scavenger hunt, because it allows students to practice problem solving in a tangible way. It helps to reinforce and act out methods they have been taught. And scavenger hunts are easy to customize to your students' abilities and interests. And it's always fun to have scavenger hunts, and it's a good way to step out of the this is a class idea and really the way to gamify it and have some fun at it. And let's see here, I have some more information on my virtual environment. And really the conclusion is that we're bringing together visual, audio, interactivity, and digital spaces, combination of synchronous and asynchronous activities by choice or need, and the familiar use of new technologies and scrimmages are clearer in 3D and immersive. So we want to give students, that crisp image, whether they're in pre-K or whether they're adult students. And we can really do that with all the technology available to us, and that is going to help education compete with everything else that's going on, including TikTok and Snapchat and all that. It's going to bring it up there. And it's going to be a fun way to learn. So I think that is the main idea of my project on how we can solve real issues with education and really close that gap where, online education was becoming pretty popular, and then thanks to the pandemic, we realized that it was a true necessity, and we really need and are able to step up our game and make it, more engaging and more appealing to students of all ages. And thank you for listening to my presentation, and you have a great night.